Hey everybody, welcome to GMG Review. Today I'm taking a look at Warhammer Age of Sigmar 3rd Edition, the core book, which comes in the Dominion box set, which was sent by Games Workshop. They're kind of sent along as a free sample. And this is the complete new edition. I think it's 200 and... I get a page count. No, 360, that's right. More than 200, 360 pages. Of 3 ways to play, expanded rule sets for narrative and open play, and a whole bunch of background. In fact, I think the first 244 pages are background and color sections. So if you're a fan of the background of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, this basically collates everything that's happened since 1st edition, from Sigmar's kicking in the gates and saying, we're taking back the realms, forming the Stormcast Eternals, and sort of like the pre-Age of Chaos, Age of Myth stuff till now, in the last 4 Broken Realms books. So it's a pretty comprehensive overview of the different lands, the actual realms. There's maps of the realms now and stuff, the different peoples that are inside it, and a few hints and spoilers. I don't want to get too far into, but there are a few Easter eggs in here of maybe things to come. And so what we're going to focus on today is the stuff after page 244, which is the core rules of the game. If I was to go through this entire book, it would take hours and hours and you would all hate me. So we're just going to go to this section right here, the rules. Now, a lot of this has been spoiled on Warhammer Community. So what I'm going to do, I played a few games now. You're watching this on Monday. Weird Monday GMG review, but this is the timeline for this particular book. And I'm going to jump basically into what's new, what's changed, and try and kind of sum up how this edition is a evolution of the 1st and 2nd edition. So if you've never played this game before, the 1st edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar was the first time that a completely new, I mean, of course it had hallmarks and throwbacks and rules pulled out of its previous incarnations and stuff, but it was really a new rule set from Games Workshop. Things like rolling for initiative every round, these condensed war scrolls, having less emphasis on the core mechanics and more emphasis on the individual units having special rules to cover when they did something weird, was a very different thing. So if you compared the Warhammer 8th edition or 9th edition or 8th edition rulebook to the Age of Sigmar rulebook, I mean, it was 5 pages of rules. It was so small. And it generally redefined, I think, the overall plan for all of the Warhammer universe stuff. It took it into like a mystical realm. And for the first little while, there was a very little format-wise. Players were encouraged to make up their own formats to play the game. And it kind of blew everyone's mind. It was, point system. There was kind of like these handshake agreements. Maybe we'll use rules for like number of models, or maybe we'll use the number of wounds they have for like how you're going to balance the game. And very late in the edition, they started to introduce things like points. And 2nd edition Warhammer Age of Sigmar came about with the sort of like full kind of like, this is what we recognize as a sort of casual pick up and play Warhammer game system with point values and stuff. And so the moratorium kind of on 2nd edition, if we're going to go through now that this edition is very close to launch, obviously, and we're looking at a preview copy of it, it has sort of traveled back from being this very open-ended, play it however you want, use the models you like, put them down, kind of thought experiment that it was in 1st edition, into the incarnation is now, where this is much closer to, like, when you look at the core battalions, the organization chart, this is much closer to like a 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy. Obviously without the rank and flank and the moving around in bricks and stuff like that. But from a how do you collect miniatures to put them down on the table point of view, that slowly over 3 editions now we've kind of tightened up and tightened up and tightened up. And this edition in particular adds even more layers of sort of like, I don't want to say restriction, but when you're playing matched play, and let's be honest, matched play is the way that people who don't know each other play the game. They say, hey, let's show up at the game store this night and play this many points. This is the most sort of like dialed in the match play rules probably have been. And so I'm going to focus on that at the end, talk about the army collecting stuff, I think. But for right now, we're going to go through the actual core rules for the game. The player's code is now codified in here. This was a 2nd edition invention, like a tournament handshake agreement on basically be nice and everybody should have a good time while you play. Those are the cardinal rules. Always tell the truth, never cheat, always be polite and respectful. And then the principles along doing that. This is a very Games Workshop thing to come up with this. I actually really like this because this is a very how you would talk at Games Workshop about making decisions or about how you behave. And I enjoy that this is now part of the actual rules. Still 3 ways to play. So open, narrative, and matched. Obviously, narrative is designed to kind of reenact the events of the game. So it's more like almost the historical way of playing, where you take the exact sort of like units and people and you try to reenact like famous battles. Open is more like, here's my collection, we put stuff down, we play. And then matched play is obviously the dialed in, here's the format for selecting your army, let's play only this way kind of way of doing it. A new introduction for this book in general, and this is actually, I'm actually probably going to call it mostly this because there's a lot of great design notes along the side here in gray box text, which is kind of an old school Games Workshop concept that talk about like, not just here's the rules for the game, but here's how we wrote the rule book to help you have it make sense. And so there's like examples, there's a lot of kind of like call outs of like things. So for instance, some words appear in bold. These are important terms. You should pay attention to them. The title for each core rules section will have a number and then a sub number to help you find things more quickly. Citadel miniatures are used to represent terrain features, endless spells, and invocations. However, only the Citadel miniatures that represent warriors in your army are considered models for rules purposes. So just little things like that are kind of all called out. So this is all core concepts. This is all pretty boilerplate and similar. Remove from play, slain, coherent, friendly and enemy models, dice, measuring tools, all that stuff is pretty much exactly the same. Dice roll modifiers, they're in here. And interestingly enough, of course, here's our call out. You can never modify a wound or a to hit roll more than once. So when you add up all the pluses and minuses, if it's ever more than +1 or -1, it gets set to +1 or -1. That's not the same for other things though. So it's just hit and wound modifiers unless otherwise stated that are capped at +1, -1. Abilities and effects. So just like things that are on abilities and phases. Things that happen during the start of the phase or the end of the phase. If it doesn't specify that it's during the phase, the player whose turn it is can then basically say which ones happen in what order. So if things are simultaneous, the person whose turn it is can determine the order in which they're played. And then they go back and forth. So if 2 or more effects would be applied at the same time other than during a turn, the players would then roll off. And then sometimes they're contradictory. The last one to apply takes precedence. So there's a stack system for magic in there too. So if 2 things contradict, then the last one to go on top would be the one that happens. Triggered effects. So this is an interesting one. Some effects and abilities are applied, excuse me, when a dice roll triggers them. For example, the effect of an ability might be triggered if an unmodified hit roll for an attack is a 6. A triggered effect is applied immediately after the roll that triggered it. If 2 or more effects are triggered by the same roll, only one of those effects can be applied. The player who made the roll must pick which effect is applied. This, I'm not sure, maybe FAQs have covered this previously, but this is a relatively new thing. So for instance, let's say you had an ability that made you hit on a 6, but also to do 2 hits, but also an ability that if you rolled a 6 to hit, you did a mortal wound and the attack sequence ended. You only get one of those now. So you can either double your hits or get a mortal wound, not both. And that's a very interesting thing because there are quite a few times where you could potentially have multiples of the same effect go off at the same time. So I think that's a neat, like, a new thing. I don't know how exactly that's going to apply, but having to choose which one happens and which one doesn't, I think is an interesting new mechanic. Shooting or fighting more than once. The effects of some abilities allow you to shoot or fight more than once. However, the effect of an ability can allow them to shoot or more than twice in the same phase. So no triple fighting. The battlefield. So that is a new thing. We're now moving to the 40K size battlefields, which is to say it started with the kill team board. I guess we can call it Warcry boards now, where you have a 60 by 44 inch table for general games. Smaller games like sub 1000 would be on, I think it's 30 by 44, and bigger than that would be 44 by 90. So typically games now, I guess, are going to be played on 60 by 44, and that's what you'll see us playing on, as we've modified a mat to fit that size. And the whole week this week, you're going to get to watch games, in addition to the Let's Play, that are going to be in that mat size. Deployment and battle rounds. Okay, so new stuff here. The deployment stuff will be generally the same, but it doesn't affect the priority roll anymore. So battle rounds, when you start a battle round, typically 5 in match play, and I'm going to focus on match play, obviously, in this review. You're going to roll off to see who goes first. The only time drops matter now in the game is on the very first turn. If you tie for the priority roll, the person with the least drops goes first. So no more person who deployed the least models getting to go first. So that whole like rush to have battalions to reduce your drop number, it's basically out of the game. It's just roll off for the first battle round, and if you happen to have less drops, there is maybe an advantage if you tie, and you can choose if you want to go first and second. And the winner of the roll doesn't have to go first or second. They have priority, and they decide if they'll go first or second during that battle round, because obviously there's some things that would make you maybe want to go second, like additional command points and stuff. More in the first turn, going second means you might get a double round, which can still happen. All right, turn sequence: hero phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, combat phase, battle shock phase, and then there's actually an end round step too after both players have taken these things. Now, command points have also changed. Command points in the previous edition of the game were a pool where you could actually buy one for 50 points to start with. Your general would generate one every round. Battalions would give you one if you took a War Scroll battalion. And there was other various in-game army effects and stuff that make them too. And they were a bank that built up and then only depleted as you used them. Now you generate command points every round, one for just being there, one for having a general alive in the battlefield, and one if you went second during the battle round, plus any of your additional army effect ones. They go away at the end of the turn. So it's use them or lose them every round, and then they come back and refill. So interestingly, you're going to see over the course of this week, we're going to play some games with some armies where we try out some like CP spam, and it has a big impact. Being able to, the new command abilities can really influence the game. So hero phase, this has obviously been covered quite a bit. The heroic actions, heroic leadership. You can, on a 4-place, generate another command point with a hero. And you get to do one of these with one hero, each hero phase at the start of it. If your general's dead though, on a 2+ you get it. So basically, when your general's dead, that offsets, you don't get the general CP anymore, but on a 2+, you can take an action to get one. Heroic willpower, pick a friendly hero that's not a wizard. If the enemy hero phase, that hero can attempt to unbind a spell in that phase as if they were a wizard. If it's your hero phase, they can dispel an endless spell. So that's kind of neat. And you know the hero keyword in this protocol is a hero. At the start of the hero phase, you can carry one heroic action from the table. And you can do it with both sides. So at the start of the hero phase, starting with the player whose turn it is, each player picks a hero. So both of you get to do it each turn, which is interesting because we made that mistake in one of our games. We forgot we could do it during our opponent's turn too, which means if you've blown all your CPs during a round, you could actually make one during your opponent's turn to use. We got the finest hour. Once per game, a hero can get +1 to hit and wound. Sorry, hit wound. Sorry, 1 to wound rolls and save rolls because you can always get 1 to hit with CPs. But you can only do it once per battle with each hero. And then heroic recovery, make a leadership test. If you pass on 2d6, heal d3. If you just equal it, you heal 1. So interesting, built-in healing. Go on your like Aristea, and then you've got get some extra CPs and get a dispel. There's a new hero phase command ability, Rally. This one's neat. So you can use this command ability at the start of the hero phase. So yours or your opponent's. The unit that you give it to has to be more than 3 from the enemy. Roll a die for each slain model in the unit. On a 6+, they come back to life. That's bananas. Like, obviously, a lower model count unit, like let's say Iron Guts or something like that, you're not going to get that many back. But 60 Night Goblins rolling fishing for 6s after a few casualties is legit use for a command point. Not usable in combat though, so it can be kind of corner case. Like you might need to have fallen back in the previous turn or wiped out your opponent to try and do it, but it can be very useful. Movement phase, biggest change here, can't run when you retreat. So it's normal move, retreat, or run. 3 different kinds. If you retreat, you can't run on top of it. Movement phase command points at the double. This is the old, if you don't like your run roll, you can make it a 6. Now it's make it a 6. You don't get to roll first, you just make it a 6. And so no fishing for the 6 with a roll and then choosing to do it afterwards. It's after you declare they're going to run, the unit must receive the command, the run roll is not made, instead 6 is out of the unit's movement. And my favorite one, redeploy, uses command ability in the enemy movement phase. After an enemy unit finishes a normal move or retreat, the unit that receives the command must be within 9 of the unit that moved and more than 3 from the enemy. They can make a d6-inch move. This is amazing. So it doesn't stop deep strikers from charging you because they don't end within 9 of you, but anyone who does come within 9, you can fall back d6. And that can be a big difference for some units, if you can get in charge or not. Or even move forward. Like you can move forward. You can't end within 3, but you could do other things, which is kind of cool. Movement, this is all pretty much the same. Coherency is now 40k coherency, so you have to stay within an inch of a friend, or if you're more than 5 models in your unit, you got to stay within an inch of 2 friends at all times. Terrain, jumping down for terrain features. Fly is now you measure on angle, which is, I guess, slightly different. It's not the same as, we just ignore terrain. Now it's measured diagonally. Shooting phase is pretty much the same, except now instead of having volley fire, you get all the attack ones, which is all out attack, so you get +1 to hit instead of rerolling ones. There's actually no reroll 1 command ability at all. So if you have reroll 1s in your army, you're lucky, because this just doubled your efficiency. You get +1 to hit instead. And then charge phase, the biggest changes are going to be that you have a previous command phase ability, which is forward to victory, reroll your charge roll if you fail, or if you don't like it. But the new one is Unleash Hell. Use this command ability after an enemy unit finishes a charge move. That unit receives a command. The command must be within 9 of the enemy, and more than 3 from all their enemy units. The unit that receives the command can shoot immediately during that phase, but when it does so, you must subtract 1 from the hit rolls for its attacks, and can only target the unit that made the charge move. So you basically get a stand and fire with somebody else that didn't get charged. And it can be crazy useful, crazy useful. And that -1 hit seems bad until you realize you can also alt attack for another CP to get the +1 to just balance it out. Combat's phase, fight units, they basically just define strike first and strike last. So there's a pile of strike first and a pile of strike lasts, and the person whose turn it is picks, and you go back and forth. Attacking is basically the same sequence now for both range and melee. So be in range, pick your targets. Shooting attacks must be in range and visible. Some models have a minimum range. Obviously you can't shoot things inside your minimum range. Combat attacks have to be in combat range. And then make your attacks. If you have more than 2 weapons, obviously it's counted in your profile, so it's just like a little proviso. Don't add up attacks for the number of things they're holding in their hands. And make a hit roll, make a wound roll, make a save roll. Then of course apply damage. It's pretty much the same thing as before. All attack and all defense are both during the phase, but they are when you make an attack or when you get targeted by an attack, and they remain for the remainder of the phase. So all attack is +1 to hit now, and all defense is +1 to save rolls. As is Mystic Shield again. Welcome 3+ save goblins to the table. Wounds. You take wounds, then you take damage. You allocate wounds as normal. Slain models, wards. And now this is a new thing. The term for any after save, like a 6+ shrug like the Night Haunts have, or the 5+ like disgusting resilience some of the Nurgle units have, is called a ward save now. And you'll see that term pop up later on. Battle Shock phase. You must make a Battle Shock test for each friendly unit that's taken a Battle Shock test. To make a Battle Shock roll a dice and add the number of models, and they flee. You decide which ones flee and then remove from play. Split units have models removed from play until you're in coherency. And then you can use Inspiring Presence. You use this command ability at the start of the Battle Shock phase. The unit that receives it doesn't have to take a Battle Shock test, so you can still inspire. Then the end of battle round, after both players have gone, the players must check the battle pack to see if anything special happens, and after the battle did not end, all command points that the players have remaining are lost, and a new battle round begins. And so there it is, that's the back and forth, there's the core rules. So that fit into, I guess if you include all of like the generic stuff like Tools of War and stuff, we're looking at page 248 to like let's not include terrain because we're looking at core rules, 263. So 15 pages. Not bad. Still a pretty condensed rule set. All right, terrain. Wholly on terrain. You got to be all on top of it. Behind terrain. It's more than 3 from the attacking unit, and you're within 1 of it. So sweet, you can claim cover for that. Faction trains the one your army comes with. You have scenery rules. You get cover, +1 to save rolls for attacks target unit in cover. If a unit has a wound characteristic of more than 10 or makes a charge move, it doesn't get cover. Defensible terrain can be garrisoned. Wildwood terrain. I like that Wildwoods have all of that stuff now. So if you can't see from more than 3 of it, then you can't see it all. And visibility to or from models with a wounds characteristic of 10 or more is never blocked by Wildwoods because they're big. Garrisons, pretty much the same as before. You join the terrain feature, you get -1 to hit and +1 to save rolls, and you measure range and visibility from the terrain feature. Objectives, they're the same as previous, so none of this like 40 mil stuff from 40k with like a measurement from that. It's all just from center. So you place the objective and measure from the middle, so it's still a 12-inch circle basically, 12-inch overall circle that you're gonna have for your objectives. And then sometimes you have to control terrain. It's not really in matched play though. All right, Wizards, so some new stuff. The casting is pretty much the same, but Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield are different. Arcane Bolt casts on 5 and has a 12-inch range. You power it up by casting it, and at the start of any phase before your next hero phase, you pick an enemy unit within range and line of sight. So range line of sight, so within 12 and able to be seen. If it's in 12, does a mortal wound. If it's within 3, you do D3. So you kind of charge up your Hadouken, and then you use it whenever you want at the start of any phase previously. It was, with the games we played, it was really interesting how useful it was to be able to maneuver an Arcane Bolt wherever you wanted it, and then like use it as part of a charge with the monster. Like, there was some cool stuff there. Mystic Shield's cast on 5 now. Pick a friendly unit wholly within range and invisible, so it's within 12. And then add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target them until your next hero phase. Endless spells get their whole description in here. There is a pretty big difference in endless spells now, is that they are typically controlled by the person who uses them. So if they're summoned by you, they're attached to you and you move them. After being in control of predatory endless spells, the player whose turn is taking place moves all the predatory spells controlled by friendly wizards. So you control them now. Only ones where the person that summoned them died become wild. If they are wild endless spells, then a player must pick a wild endless spell to move, if any are eligible to do so, and cannot pick a wild endless spell until after all the other ones have been moved that phase. So they get picked last, and someone gets to pick them basically in the order they get picked in, starting with the player's turns taking place. So that's useful, that they're not just always going to be played by the person who goes second. You get to keep the endless spells that you summon, which is nice. Priests get a whole general thing on casting prayers now. They typically have a call that you use to chant them, and that's your your casting value basically on D6. If you roll 1 though on a prayer, you divine wrath, take a mortal wound. Same with spells casting. Sorry, if you roll snake eyes, take D3 mortal wounds when you miscast. There are 2 generic prayers. Bless. Bless is a prayer that can call an answer value of 4, sorry, not a calling value, in a range of 12. If answered, pick a friendly unit wholly within range invisible, and they get a ward save of 6+. So 6+ wound shrug. And then smite, it's a answer value of 2 in range of 48. If answered, pick an enemy priest within range invisible, they take a mortal wound. If the chanting roll was a 6 or more, the priest suffers D3 instead of 1. So it's used only to attack priests, but I just think it's a cool thematic thing for priests to fight priests. They call on their god to fight a heretic. And then invocations are the general rules for things like, they're basically endless spells, but with a summoning kind of like a priest summoning. And they work almost the same way, except they're used by the priest. So things like the Khorne Bloodbound's Wraths of Khorne. And then the monster stuff, and this is all spelled on Warhammer Community. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but basically, Roar is stop people from using commands. Stomp is do mortal wounds. Titanic Duel +1 hit other monsters. And then Smash to Rubble, destroy terrain, and that one can be very useful. Defining a war scroll, it's the same as previous. Faction terrain war scrolls, pitch battle stuff, point values, conditional battlefield rolls, it's all the same. Battalions, okay. So these are core battalions. Now you can use war scroll battalions in open play and in narrative play, obviously. You can't use them in match play. In match play, you get access to all of these instead. And they mostly do the stuff you used to get from old war scroll battalions. The one you're gonna see the most is the Warlord one. It unlocks this and this, which is Strategist. Once per battle, get an extra command point. And the other one is Magnificent. When you pick enhancements for your army, pick an extra enhancement. Now, enhancement's now a catch-all term for anything that is added to the army. So it could be an artifact, it could be a spell, it could be a mount trait. Any of those things are considered enhancements. You get 1 extra one. Now, it doesn't make you unified. Only the battle regiment makes you unified, which makes you a single drop of deployment. But again, deployment doesn't matter that much. So your roles are Commander, which is a leader. Sub-commander, a leader with a wound characteristic of less than 10. Troops, anything that's not a leader, artillery or behemoth. Artillery is artillery, and then monster is a behemoth that's not the leader. So, for instance, in this one, what you need is a leader. You need 2 leaders with a wound characteristic of less than 10, and you need any other kind of unit that's not a behemoth or artillery. And you get that. That one's really easy to take. I think everyone's going to take at least 1. You'd need to be playing at least 2,000 points to take 2, because you'd have to have 6 heroes. So that's super common. This one may be common in that you might want to reduce your drops. So if you have 3 units and 4 heroes, you can easily put in a battle regiment and a warlord and get a unified drop. I think more likely is you're going to see things like vanguards and command entourages, because the command entourage, well, you can't get that one, sorry, until you get to 2,000 points, but the line breaker and the vanguard ones, you may see for Swift, a free run CP for Vanguard, and then a line breaker is a Slayers, once per battle. Sorry, it's not that one, it's Expert, sorry. Once per battle, a unit from this battalion can receive the all attack or all defense without spending a command point. So useful. And then same with Grand Battery. If you do like your artillery, once per battle you can get +1 to hit. Definitions of allegiance abilities and your enhancement restrictions and artifacts of power and stuff like that. And you get some universal ones. Now these are neat. We've got things like universal command traits. So battle rust, reroll run and charge rolls. Skilled leader, 5+ extra command point during the hero phase. High priest, reroll chanting rolls. Heroic stature, +1 wound. Master of might, once per hero phase, reroll 1 casting roll, dispelling roll, or unbinding roll. Master of magic, sorry. Universal artifacts, amulet of destiny, 5+ ward. Vial of manticore venom, +1 damage to a melee weapon. Arcane tome, because a wizard with arcane bolt and mystic shield, and cast and unbind a spell. If you're already a wizard, cast an extra spell. And then Seed of Rebirth, reroll heroic recovery rolls for the bearer. So when you try and do the heroic action to heal wounds, you can reroll it. Universal spell lores, so flaming weapon, cast on 4, pick one of the caster's melee weapons, get +1 damage. Levitate, so you can actually combine those, Arcane Tome and Flaming Weapon, to get a pretty cool, not usually wizard, +1 damage. How about a damage 7 Spirit of Dirthu? Let's do it. Levitate, it's casting value of 8 and 18-inch range. Pick a unit that's visible, they can fly. And then Ghost Mist, cast on 5 and range is 6. If cast, pick a terrain feature within range invisible. Until your next hero phase, visibility between 2 models basically becomes trees. You can't see if you have to draw a line from close to closest point that's blocked by more than 3 inches of that terrain. Universal Prayers, Guidance, answer value 5, get a command point. It's basically the priest version of Skilled Leader. Heal, cast on 3, range of 12, pick a friendly model and heal D3 wounds. And then Curse, answer of 4 and range of 9, pick an enemy unit within range invisible to the caster until your next hero phase of the unmodified hit roll is a 6 to take a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. And then your Universal Triumph, so if you have less points than your opponent, you get Bloodthirsty once per battle. After you make a charge roll for a friendly unit, you can say it's Bloodthirsty and reroll the charge roll. Inspired once per battle, you can say they're inspired. If you do so, add 1 to wound rolls for them until the end of the phase. And then Indomitable, if you have to take a battle shock test for a friendly unit, you can say it's Indomitable. No more models will flee from the battle shock test. So handy triumphs if you're down on points. And then battle packs. So battle packs are the general term now for the different types of game that you play. So matched plays, a battle pack overall, right? And then you've got all the different battle plans inside that battle pack. Open plays a battle pack, and then narrative plays a battle pack too. Your map, look at that. It's the kill team board even divided into kill team board tiles for convenience. We got some beautiful painted armies from all the studio staff, like Ben Johnson's Sons of Behemat. And we're into open play. So open play is still using points. So there's no power system like in 40K, which means you're going to be just using point values. You can play 750, 2,000, or over 2,000. And that gives you your table size and recommended terrain features. This is all the same as in match play. So it's 750, 30 by 44, and 4 pieces of terrain. 2,000, 44 by 60, 8 pieces, and over 2,000, 44 by 90, and 12 pieces. You get your faction terrain. Battalions can be used. You can include work scroll battalions and core battalions. And then you got procedurally generated maps, victory conditions, twists, ruses, and arcane prizes. So it's basically the open play cards, but a bit more limited. You can see there's not a ton here. 6 deployment styles, 6 different victory conditions that are the main ones, 6 twists, 6 ruses, and 6 arcane prizes. And that's it. Open play done. They kept it simple. I kind of like that. I appreciate keeping it simple because open play players tend to want a simple pickup game of Age of Sigmar. Still uses points, which means it can be played casually at the game store, and you just make yourself a mission and go. That's a good weekend way of playing Age of Sigmar without tons of restrictions. Yeah, Thomas Elliott's Nagash conversion is baller, by the way. It's super cool. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. He's sitting in a chair. He's so cool. Narrative play. Now, this is probably the most expanded section. Previously, narrative play in Age of Sigmar was its own little storybook. So every narrative play campaign setting came out in a book, or it came out in GHB, or it came out in the Battle Tome itself. And you had to kind of own all these separate individual things to play like story-driven missions because they're all bespoke. They were all tied to a time and a place or a thing, a campaign book or whatever. Now you have path to glory narrative campaigns that are more like the Crusade games in 40K. So you're going to choose a faction and realm to play in, choose a starting size in the territories you start off with, put your order of battle together, choose your core enhancements, pick your first quest, and then start playing games. Quests unlock your items and abilities to enhance your army with, and the games themselves can be almost anything. and we'll go through and show you. So choose your starting size and territory. This is going to be great. Vanguard is 600 points, Warband's 1,000, Brigade's 1,500, and Legion's 2,000. You get up to 6 units, 8 units, 12 units, or 16 units, and you start with 5, 8, 10, or 12 glory to spend on things. You also start with a stronghold, and your territories. You can control 3 territories at once with your basic stronghold. Your barracks can have up to 3 barracks, and your outpost, you can establish 1 outpost. And your order of battle, so the things you can start off with, up to 3 heroes, 1 monster, 1 war machine, 1 wizard unit, 1 priest unit, 1 reinforced unit, which means a unit above starting strength, and 1 allied unit. That reinforced thing is going to come up again in match play. Pick a warlord, and this is much more, instead of rolling on a random chart, I liked the old Path to Glory because it's basically the Chaos Path to Glory expansion from 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle. But I really like that this is like the expanded version. Go on your quests, you can search for an artifact to add to your army, seek a blessing to learn a new like prayer, go on a magical quest to learn a spell, scout fertile lands to get a glory point that you can spend on more like areas to like put your outposts and strongholds. Then you fight your games, whatever the class they are, and then you go through the aftermath sequence. So are your units destroyed? Did you earn glory? Make your injury rolls. Was the unit killed or forged in battle and gain renown? And then you spend your renown points on extra stuff. Becoming veteran warriors, elite veteran warriors, legendary warriors, and gain veteran abilities. And when you complete quests, you can improve your stronghold from being imposing to mighty. You got millions of different territories, which is, this makes me fun because this is like a Necromunda style territory table right here. And then that's it. There's all your Blades of Corn stuff, and here's your battle pack, so how big a table and what to use, and 6 different missions. So Sudden Assault, Trap, Ritual, Watchtower, Hold or Die, and Breakthrough. And we're in match play. All right, match play. So, when I said restrictions, look at how much, between the first 3, open play had like 3 things in a table, narrative play had 6, and now there's like, what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 restrictions you can have. So your point limit, first things first, what am I really happy about here is this middle column right here. They put a 1,500 point limit in there. It was the redheaded stepchild of point values for a while. It just wasn't covered in any of the 2nd edition tables, and I'm so happy to see it. All the games we're playing this week are 1,500 points. It fits the table size perfectly. It makes you make some hard choices about what you have in your army, and I feel like there's some intentional stuff in here because almost all the God Monster point values are 760, and you can only include the most expensive model in your army can't be more than half your total army value. So at 760, well, surprise, surprise, all the big God monsters don't fit. So there's no Alariel, there's no Nagash, no Archeon, no Kragnos, he can't show up. But weirdly, Teclis is still in there. I feel like you're getting a point update, buddy. And so it gives out a legit thing. So you need 1 to 4 heroes, 2 battle line plus, 0 to 3 behemoths, 0 to 3 artillery, 0 to 2 endless spells and invocations, and 0 to 3 reinforced units. So the 2,000 point one hasn't changed much, except that now you can have up to 3 endless spells and up to 4 reinforced units. That is a big change. And only battle line units can be reinforced more than once, which means when you take multiples of a unit to make it bigger. So my 15-man unit Chaos Warriors, for instance, in my Slaves to Darkness army is fine, but Owen can't take more than like, in a 1,500 point game, he can only take 1 60-man Goblin unit. He can't take 2 because he only has 3 reinforcements he can add. So you can take a double-sized one or a triple-sized one, and that's it. And there's no taking like 2 60s. Once you get to 2,000, you can take 2 60-man units if you want to. It's an interesting new change, and I kind of like that to kind of dissuade blobs. And then you get your battlefield rolls and allied units, so 300 points of allies, 1 in 4 allied units in your army, and you still have your point values capped. Special rules, they do apply in the battle. Steal initiative, do not roll off to determine who has priority in the first battle round, and so the player who finished deploying their army first has priority in the first battle round. So still in match play, just not in all the other versions of the game, or all the other ways to play. So it does add, I guess it does add value to this one. Where is it? To the infantry battalion. You don't get anything except for going as 1 drop with the infantry battalion, but it's not nothing basically. You're gonna get to go as a drop and maybe go first and help yourself go first, but you're not gonna get an extra item, an extra potential command point. And then grand strategies. Now these are new, and I will say that this battle pack feels a lot more like ITC than anything else. It's a very like ITC Age of Sigmar thing. It's very different from the previous GHB. So if you liked the last GHB and the way the match play worked, this may feel very different. So for the game, after you pick your army, you pick a grand strategy that you're gonna have, and it's on your army roster. So this is forever. At the end of the battle, if you complete it, you get 3 extra VPs. So the 3 options are sever the head, kill all the enemy heroes. Vendetta, when your battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if your general is alive and your opponent's is dead. And hold the line, you complete it if any of your battle line units that were originally set up as part of your army are still alive at the end of the game. So you gotta pick those when you make your army and put it on your army roster. And then battle tactics. And then at the start of your hero phase, you pick a battle tactic. So you don't pick one until your hero phase. From the list below, and you must reveal it to your opponent, and if your battle tactic instructs you to pick something, you must tell your opponent what it is. At the end of your turn, or when it's said to be done, you'll score based on what the battle plan says. Most times, it's 2 points if you score this one each round. This is kind of like the secondaries in ITC for 40K, except you choose these round by round, which I feel like is a better, more flexible way of doing it, and there's only 6. Break their spirit, pick an enemy unit wholly within your opponent's territory, destroy them. Broken ranks, pick a unit from your opponent's starting army that is on the battlefield. You complete this tactic if it's destroyed during this turn. Conquer, pick an objective marker in the battlefield that your opponent controls. Complete this tactic if you control at the end of the turn. Repel, pick an enemy unit wholly or partially in your territory, destroy them at the end of the turn. Seize the center. At the end of your turn, if you have more than 6, more friendly than enemy models within 6 in the middle, you get it. And then slay the warlord, kill your opponent's general during the turn. Conquest of Generals battle plans, there's 3 of them in here. Frontal Assault, Burn and Pillage, Rising Power. So Frontal Assault is 2 territories, 3 objectives. It's hold 1, hold 2, hold more to score 3 each round, plus your battle tactic you want to get. And it's 5 rounds to win. And that's it. You go back and forth deploying. Person who finishes deploying gets the choice of first or second priority in the first round. And then you play to see who wins. And it's a very simple 3 objective. We've played it already. You'll see it tomorrow. We get a few things wrong, obviously, because it's our first week playing. But generally speaking, the table felt very tight. And the objectives are very close together on this size table. I mean, you're talking about 36 inches of objective across a 60-inch table. There's not a lot of gaps. There's only 3 inches in between them. Burn and Pillage, again, score 1, score 2, hold 1, hold 2, hold more, and then score 2 if you complete your battle tactic for the turn. But you can also pillage from the start of the second battle round afterwards. You can pillage an objective you control that's within your opponent's territory and within one of a friendly unit. You get D3 points, but it's removed from play. And then your grand strategies for 3 at the end of the game. Lasts 5 rounds. And then Rising Power, it's again, players alternate setting up, and then shifting priorities at the start of each battle round after determining which player will take the first turn. The players take the second turn must roll a die. This is the corresponding objective which is worth more. So it's score 1 for if you control at least 1, score 1 if you control 2, score 1 if you control more, score 2 victory points if you complete this battle tactic for the turn. And the objective that's the priority one counts as 2 objectives for the point of scoring for the end of the game. And there's 5 on the table, you can see here. But only the middle ones can be the priority. And that's it for match play. So obviously probably a lot more missions coming from match play. I would imagine that the GHB is going to have, which is General's Handbook, sorry I keep saying GHB, is going to have more of these in 2021. But it's a good start for them, and they're super fun to play. We played them all week, and they are, generally speaking, very smooth, and it feels like a simplified ITC. We're really liking the 1500 point level for this on 60 by 44. It just feels like a very right point value for Age of Sigmar, and I highly recommend when you get to it, you try that first. Look at Jez Bickham's gorgeous Lumineth. I love these orange guys. Conquest Unbound, so this is ginormous games and playing sieges. So how to attack a fortress and generally like siege rules, which is kind of cool. Triumph of Treachery, multiplayer games. It's got a 2-page spread. Playing in tunnels. And then your Path to Glory roster. And that's it. Army rosters for playing general games. And that's our look through the Warhammer Age of Sigmar core book. So, all week this week, I'll be playing Age of Sigmar 3 games with a variety of armies. I have painted up the Stormcast Eternals. I just finished them today, actually. I'm filming this on Friday to come out on Monday. And I gotta start working on the Orcs next, the Cruel Boys. It's a big box set of miniatures. But I will say that it's not a starter set. This is not a very starter-friendly starter set. It's not push fit so much as it's like a value box of getting the rulebook and all the miniatures, like 60-something miniatures in one go. There's no dice, there's no measuring sticks, there's the War Scroll cards for all the units, which I'm going to do a separate video on, and also show off in the game. And then there's a whole pile of miniatures. It's a fabulous box, but I wouldn't call it like a traditional starter set. Whereas Soul Wars was a starter set. It came with the cool blue dice, it had a measuring stick. Watch the Let's Play because I feel like I'm excited to play with the Stormcast and stuff out of this box, but the book itself was sort of the most important thing in the box set, and it's a big dive in. So it's good for new players, I think, but not necessarily as like just get this and start playing as the Soul Wars box was, or the Age of Sigmar starter set previous to that. This book itself, though, my God, the cover's gorgeous, the internal art's fabulous, 245 pages of background, so I haven't been able to read through the whole thing. I've read probably the first 80 pages-ish, because I got this on Tuesday, Wednesday, and got it all built. And that's absorbed most of my time, is getting the armies ready to play. But it is a fabulous rulebook, and I'm glad I got this edition of it too, because the cover is super nice. So anyway, big thanks for Games Workshop sending this for me to check out, and for you guys to see too. I hope you enjoyed that sort of like rundown of what's new and different in the game. Obviously, the most important thing is how does this impact the play, and I recommend you watch our playthroughs today and going forward all this week. We're going to make some mistakes. Obviously, it's a new edition. Like we missed the match play addendum to if it's the first battle round, the drops don't matter in the first game. We missed using both of us using heroic actions in both turns in the first game too, which it's funny. I do this because I know it's going to happen. The Let's Play you're watching today is actually the last game we played, because we played 4 games previous to try and shake out all the bugs before we did the Let's Play. So the most polished game you'll probably see is the one you're watching today, and they will get more polished, but the first couple might have a few, like we forget some things and there's some addition stuff in our heads going forward. So anyway, big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more Age of Sigmar in the future. Mash. Have a good day. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.